Chapter 1 The Well That Whispered. The first gold of dawn steals over Roof Thatch Hill, and I, Wulfric Stonehand, late of many a hollow shaft, lean upon my iron-bound fence, listening for the day's tame music. Rooster crow, bucket squeal, the homely hush of dew on wheat. Yet beneath such gentle hymn there breathes another pulse, low, steady, and wrong. It thrums through the timbers as a smith's hammer buried under sod, and the very pebbles at my boot toe tremble to its beat. I will not name it omen, for old miners see portents in every creak, yet this sound carries weight, as though an unseen right doth rake its claws along the understone. I set palm to the well's moss-cooled coping, feel chill seep through hide-tough fingers. Cold, aye, but deeper still runs a heat, faint as forge ember beneath ash, quickening with each breath I draw. No mere spring murmurs so. The sun climbs, sparrows begin their quarrel. I cannot linger. Oak stands close at hand, the village green's broad elder, whose leaves have shaded harvest feasts longer than my beard hath grayed. I circle it, mutter a curt prayer, then strike the trunk with clenched fist. Bark gives, splinters fret my knuckles. The tree groans, yet timber enough falls after the third ringing blow. Not for naught was I called Stonehand. With fallen logs and leaf twigs I fashion a workbench, its birch plank face smooth beneath calloused skin. Here I set about the day's first craft. 4 oak boards, 2 sticks, an axe is born. Soon after its twin, the wooden pick clatters into being. Simple tools, but a man must heed what the earth whispers, and wood alone shall not long fend a creeping dread. I turn towards the old quarry, not 20 strides from the bakery's clay oven, and dig where cobble peeps through turf. Stone sings beneath my crude pick, shards spur outward like flint sparks. 12 blocks, no more, suffice. I cleave a furnace, shape a sturdier pick and axe, each haft heavier and true. The iron veins deeper down may wait for another morn. This task is haste enough. While I labor, wind shifts from the fen, bearing the thick scent of peat freshly cut. Smoke sweet, half drowned, the breath of last night's hearth. Yet wedded to that comfort lingers a sharp taint, sour as rot where water stands too long. It creeps from the well mouth and curls along the grass like unseen fog. Chickens squawk, dogs tuck tail. Even the hammer-bowled children who oft beg to see my pick strike stone take sudden fright and scatter. Then the well speaks. Not a bucket clang nor rope whine, but a shriek, thin as slate clove in winter frost, rips through the square. I spin. From the darkness yawn 3 eyes of ghost blue flame, set in a thing like twisted root wrought of indigo flesh. It quivers, senses again, then screams once more. My ears ring like kettle drum, and the very air shudders. A skulk censer. I know its sigil from tales spread by wandering redstoners, tales I named fancy. No longer. The earth truly speaks doom. Villagers pour from doorways. Hedda the baker, flour ghosting her braids. Halda the swine tender, wielding nothing save a carrot. Even stern Brynjar the reeve. helm half buckled, voice shivering as he calls for flight. Beyond them, by the council fire's stone ring, stands the elder, bent but unbroken, beard like river root, eyes ember keen. He lifts his staff and beckons me across the green. Around us the censer wails anew. With every cry, a sheet of the bluest mould creeps up the well's stone, turning grey lichen to pulsing skulk. Chickens that stray too near sink in, feathers smothered, silent swallowing their last cluck. From that darkness something deeper answers, felt, not heard, a heartbeat in the bedrock. We huddle by the fire pit, smoke still faint in the dawn light. "Stone hand," the elder rasps, voice dry as last year's parchment. "The earth speaks doom, lad. This blight hath devoured keeps farther north. Now it cleaves to our threshold. Hearken, or perish." I hearken, I say, though fear scratches my ribs. What craft drives it? He lays a trembling palm upon my axe haft. Craft will fail where courage falters. But mark, strike wood, strike stone, keep thy wits keen, for the skulk learns the sound of thy name and would fold thee into its squire. A grim smile lifts his weather-scarred lips. Go, you tools of heft and grit. We, what few remain, shall flee beyond the wheat rise and pray thy metal holds. A hush passes. Elder's gaze lingers on the well where the mould now drips over cobbles, spattering like sick dew. He turns, shepherds the folk westward. None scream. The terror is too heavy for shrill breath. Little Inga weeps into her doll's hair, but even that sound seems stolen by the censor's watch. I shoulder bedroll, bread heel, stone axe and pick, nothing more. Oak leaves still rustle overhead, yet the breeze grows stale. It tastes of iron and rain, though cloudless sky stands clear. I spare one backward look. The hamlet of my days, wooden huts, chorus of forge and flail, lies beneath a web of midnight veins that spread outward from the well as cracks in frozen loam. Each pulse of that hidden heart dimly lights them, nigh beautiful in cold glory, and I know beauty may beguile as swiftly as any blade. The path opens east to berry heath and spruce shadow. My boots find the trail of flattened grass where children once raced. Now only my tread rings there. I breathe deep, the peat smell fading behind, and in its place comes the bite of pine tar and distant snow. Onward I stride, for the censer wail grows fainter, yet the heartbeat quickens. It knows my course, it cleaves to my spoor. So be it. The day is young, the road long, and my courage a forge yet to be kindled hot. I heft the pick, stone still rings in my ears. The journey hath begun, and I pray my hand prove hard as my name. Chapter 2. Flight across Berry Heath. The sun stands scarcely a spear breadth above the eastern firs when I quit the ghost-quiet hamlet and set boot to the heath. Grass gilded by dawn sways knee-high. Among the stalks crimson berries glimmer like drops of fresh blood. My stomach gnaws, empty since yester-eve, so I stoop, palm brimming with the fruit, and taste the sharp sweet burst that speaks of summer gone to seed. Hunger's bar within my breast climbs a notch, and strength flows back into sinew grown weary through grief. I keep the well behind me, yet its hidden heartbeat seems to stalk my shadow. Each time I pause, the hush deepens, as though some weight of echo waits to ride the wind and name me foe. I mutter a road prayer taught in younger days, words spare as winter wheat. Stone be stead, steel be true, and doom light upon the dark alone. My voice sounds small in the wide air, but the saying steals nerve and limb alike. Berries alone will not carry a man far, nor grant shelter from night's chill. Thus I turn toward a low ridge of granite that shoulders out of the heath half a bow shot west. Thin seams of iron glint in its flank, or laid bare by last spring's flood perhaps. I set my stone pick to the vein. Grain by stubborn grain the rock yields. Sparks split and the clang rings over the moor till larks flee the sky. 2 chunks of rawn iron suffice. With a block of coal pried from the same seam, I kindle the furnace I carved at daybreak, the fire's breath hot against the cool morning breeze. While iron reddens to molten bloom, I roam the verge for sheep. Soon their bleats answer. From bracken hazed with gorse wander 3 ewes, coats thick as cloud. They eye me warily, but grass whispers sweeter than fear. The ingots, cooled upon the crafting table's plank, bend beneath my hand to shears keen and new. 1 careful snip, then another, and white fleece flutters down like late snow. No blood spilt, no spear raised, only honest graft, and the beasts crop on, heedless that their wool shall ward a man's bones from midnight frost. Swift deeds, yet time has slipped away. The sun now climbs toward noon. I press eastward, where heath yields to fern and young spruce. Behind, the grass grows strangely hushed. I risk a glance. The skulk spreads. Fingers of indigo creep along the very swath my boots have trod, vein upon vein knitting through root and stone. Where berries hung an hour past, only shriveled husks remain. Censers, those 3-eyed thorns of dread, sprout amid the mould, their glow pale in day's glare. One lurches, bends as though tasting my heat upon the wind, and shrieks. The cry shivers across open ground. Far off a second answers. I break into a run. The wind claws throat and lung, yet I spare breath for a curse. The horde hath my name writ on its tongue. The words taste of iron filings. The spruce thicken ahead, a dark belt against the sky. Boughs clutch low, their needles damp from the fleeting cloudburst that must have swept this way at dawn. Bark greets palm cold as river stone when I shoulder through. Beneath the canopy, twilight reigns. Here the scent is resin and rain-washed earth, a balm after peat rot and sulk taint. I slow, listening. Only the drip of water and far wood-pigeon coo greet my ear. Then, from a blossom patch ringed by fern, a hum not of bird nor breeze. I ease nearer. Upon a nodding foxglove alights a bee, yet no honey hue clothes this creature. Its thorax lies filmed in mottled cyan. Vein threads pulse across wings like lines in cracked ice, and its tail sways a bulbous sac that oozes faint gleam. A skulk bee. If redstoners speak true, they tell that such insects wander gentle till the horde commands, then turn as barbed darts to sow further bane. The bee drifts flower to flower, unhurried, unheeding. I dare not loose arrow or blade. The drone might bring every senser screaming. Instead, I edge back, keeping trunk between us until distance and shadow swallow its ghost-bright glow. Only then does breath return. Rain begins once more, fine as spider silk threading through the boughs. Cold beads skip from spruce needles and slide beneath my collar, raising prickles down spine and arm. Evening sidles in upon that chill. I reckon the skulk to the west yet claims ground, but the day's road has spent me, and wet darkness favors prowling things. Better lie dog-quiet till dawn and trust in wool, fire, and bed. Under a broad-rooted elder spruce whose lowest limbs brush soil, I scrape a shallow hollow, lining it with spruce leaves stripped from nearby saplings. Fern tops serve for pillow, sheared fleece and traveller's cloak for coverlet. In the crook of a root I set the furnace once more, feeding it with heath sticks fetched at risk from the wood's edge. Flames rise soft and steady, their glow lighting bark in copper light. The rain, though keen, cannot pierce the green roof above, only hushed patter carries within. I bite into the last of the berries, tongue finding sweetness still, though faint. Hunger eases for a spell. From habit rather than need, I turn 3 wool blocks and 3 spruce planks upon the workbench, and the bed is done, white blanketed like first frost on field. I lay it near the embers. The warm steeps through. Night deepens. The fire gutters low. Beyond the ring of light, something stirs. Perhaps deer, perhaps worse. But none break the line. I clutch stone axe, draw cloak to chin, and let lids droop. Heartbeats that slow in ear, yet another pulse faintly answers through root and soil, as though the sensor's brood still seeks my scent. Let them hunt. Bed's wool muffles the world, and the game rule grants that from such rest the long black minutes flee swiftly as startled hare. Thus I press palm to the pillow, speak one last muttered charge. Stone hand shall not falter. The fire within outburns their blight. Rain sings on high bough. Ember scent mingles with berry sweet tang upon my breath, and sleep takes me. Light, but enough, for dawn will demand fresh metal, and swifter stride, for the horde's shadow lengthens across every furlong I win. Chapter 3. Red Stoner of the Mineshaft. The third dawn since I quitted home breaks wan and bloodless, for cloud banks the colour of wrought iron brood above the east. I rise from my spruce hide hole, stiff of limb, yet the bed hath spared me the worst of night's bite. Hunger gnaws, so I chew the final clutch of berries, the sweetness dulled, and wash the pulp down with meltwater caught in bark. Then I shoulder pack and steel, my mind for descent, for I have espied from the ridge a gash in the earth, an old strip mine split by time and weather into a crooked moor. Folk of the heath speak of sunken rails and buried wealth beneath that scar. Where rails lie, Skulk seldom yet spreads, its roots balked by ancient timber and iron brace. If fortune favours, iron of my own shall be rested, and perhaps a glint of redstone, blood of the deep, to shape wiser craft. The opening yawns wide enough to swallow cattle, yet I still stoop, wool bedroll scraping granite lip. Air drifts upward, chill and stale, bearing musk of damp shaft wood and something sharper. Ozone, like storm caught beneath stone. I drop a torch. The flame licks to life, painting the chute's walls in amber streaks. Ladder rungs rotted to paper hung one side. I stab stone pick into the opposite face and climb by half-digging ledges, boots skidding, gravel rattling into dark. Hard drums, but I am miner bred. The earth and I have parleyed before. At last my torch clinks upon rail. I step down into a cavernous gallery propped by spruce beams black with age. Iron track curls through, half swallowed by gravel fall. Minecart lies wrecked against support chest splintered, its load of coal spilling like jet marbles. Torch glow flickers, pushed by hidden drafts. Each wavering shadow seems a skulking thing till reason reigns fear. Still, I slam cobble behind me, sealing daylight's mouth. No warden need hear this path. Cobweb swaddles the crossbeams, gore as thick as winter wool. When strands brush my cheek, they cling cold and damp. I spit a curse. Cave spider nests, nigh for sure. I hew the webs free with axe blade, silk tearing with wet hiss, the sound of skulk on kiln stone. The rail bends and I follow, planting torches at each 10 paces, lest gloom swallow root and sense alike. Soon, chitter rises before me, high and brittle, accompanied by the scrape of many spindling legs. Torchlight reveals mossy cobble cribbing, cobweb draped round a monster spawner spinning green within. 8-legged spawn fling themselves against bars, venom fangs dripping. I waste no arrow, I rush, stone axe upraised. 2 swings, 3, the cage cracks, shards of iron flying. Light gutters and the whirl falls still. Venom catches my arm in passing. Cold fire beneath my skin, yet sweet berry and raw will stead me long enough to quaff a draught of snowmelt. The stinging ebbs. I carve drop string from the twitching husks. Silk may bind wounds by nightfall. Past the ruined nest, the shaft opens to a crossroad chamber where rails join in star knot. Here sits light, unexpected. Redstone torch upon fence, burning with steady ruby flame. Beneath that glow crouches a figure robed all ebon, save for crimson sigils stitched along the hem. Long beard of soot grey spills from the hood. Eyes glint like 2 furnace cores banked beneath ash. In his clutch is a ledger bound by copper wire, pages aflutter though the air stands still. I halt, stone axe half lifted. The stranger taps his foot, iron-toed boot striking rail in slow chime.
"No need, pick wielder,"
he says, voice deep, echoing as if born of bedrock itself.
"Your steel would cleave but shade. I am no thrall of Skulk, nor yet of daylight realms. I am called Hermond the Circuiteer, though 'tis long since men sought my craft."
I lower the blade by half. "Wulfric Stonehand," I answer, name sounding crude beside his thunder. "If craft thou hast, this hour sorely craves it. Skulk pours from the wells above. My village lies lost." A grave nod.
"I have heard the shriek, sensed the tick of their dark code. Yet coin buys counsel, even in world's dusk."
He gestures to a blank square of air, with spark of red dust. A villager's trade ledger hangs, ghost lit. Slots stand empty, save one, wherein glimmer 3 calite clumps, pale as moon-milked stone. In the result frame hovers a single enchanted book, letters wrought in gold, Fortune 1. Calite! I finger pouched belt and draw forth the creamy shards prized from cliff on yesterday's flight. Thrice I had thought these mere baubles, I grumbled. He smiles, a thin, knowing crescent. I set the clumps upon imagined desk. Shimmer flows, and the fortune tome folds into my hand, heavy with promise. Hermond steps close, parchment scent mingling with furnace smoke that clings to robe. From breast pocket he draws a glass vial, stoppered with nether quartz. Within coils liquid violet, faintly luminescent.
"Purity flask,"
quoth he, holding it between us.
"One draught bird skulked alone, yet spares living flesh. If soul hold firm, you shall need many."
How forged! My voice cracks on thirst for such hope. He kneels, chalking upon railbed a sigil of apple and crystal.
"Stoop and heed. One glass bottle filled with water of any brook, and dust of amethyst shard ground fine. Then steep an enchanted golden apple upon flame till its heart bleeds molten gold. Combine these 3 while moon rideth zenith, and your bottle shall blaze with light untainted. Forge purity from amethyst and apple gold, or perish."
Last words thunder off rafter, a smith's verdict. I weigh the flask between fingers, cool yet throbbing like captive star. Golden apples are rare as peace, amethyst deeper still.
"True ore lies where courage delves,"
Hermond intones. From inner sleeve he slips a second paper. Recipe book glows atop.
"The words within change to fit the hand that bears it. Let pages guide tool and fire."
He presses it to my chest. Heat flares, then dims. I fumble pledge of thanks, but Hermond fades like lamp smoke. Only redstone torch remains. Had I dreamt him? No. Book and fortune tome weigh full in pack. Torches crackle. Rail hum throbs faint as though remembering his tread. Work calls. I unroll my map, ink hastily drawn, and mark this chamber with coal cross. Then I fit the new enchant to my stone pick at makeshift anvil, grinding book to steel with sparks like red snow. The pick gleams keener, thirsting for ore. Fortune shall serve, though stone shaft may shatter ere long. Cobweb drags across nape as I duck beam and follow rail deeper, drawn by memory of Hermond's parting charge. Somewhere beyond, gloom awaits amethyst geode, and apples of gold yet hang in woodland lost. Torch flame dances before me, behind darkness stirs. Skulk hissed like wet coal far above, but here, in the mine's hush, only my own breath breaks the stillness, and the pulse of a vial that promised dawn if hand and heart hold firm. Thus I press on, gruff prayer upon tongue, grip tight upon fortune's haft, and trust that strange redstoner's craft may yet buy mankind one more sliver of light. Chapter 4. Sneak beneath the deep dark. The low passes of the heath give way, after a half-day's march, to a spine of slate and snow that folk name Frostgrin Ridge, and at its foot yawns a wound whose mouth exhales winter. That chill, raw as hammer-sharpened steel, creeps through cloak and beard, yet I welcome the bite. It tells of height, that I descend toward the realm where sunlight hath never trod and Skulk first took counsel with the dark. A mineshaft once pierced these bones for silver. Now the ladders lie in ruin, but the drift yet runs into the mountain's heart, and I follow its cold breath downward. Torch after torch flickers behind, yet cannot wholly master the deepening black. The air holds no scent of mould or bat, only clean frosts thin as sorrow, and the faintest tang of sultry stone that hath never known the kiss of rain. My footfalls thud upon raw slate, yet I mark each stride with care, muttering beneath my breath, "Stonehand, keep thy tread soft, the earth listens." A final switchback ends in a chamber of such breadth that torchlight dies before striking wall. The floor slants into gloom, and where my light fails, another glow rises. A drowned cerulean radiance that pools like ghost mist upon flagstones cut by hands-long dust. I have heard whispers of this place, the ancient city. Yet sight chills marrow more sure than tale. Avenues of basalt, buttressed halls like arches gape like the ribs of some buried titan, all clothed in the weaving of the Skulk Horde. Its veins pulse lazy in that blue hush, as though the city itself doth dream uneasy. I crouch and draw from pack the treasure few would deem precious, 2 stacks of snow-white wool shorn from heathland sheep. Herman's ledger had shown wool as shield to sound. Redstoners swear that shriekers feel vibration through stone, but not fleece, and I choose to wager my life on that thin comfort. Placing the first block, I creep upon hands and knees, bridging from ledge to ledge where the stone joists have fallen away until a swath of pale stepping cloud spans the chasm. Beneath, void yawns fathomless, and my torch, dropped for measure, flickers once, tumbles, and is swallowed by silence. No echo climbs back. Only a hush so vast it presses upon eardrum like deep ocean. My path carries toward a central plaza where faint outlines of chests lie half buried under Skulk. Yet guardians stand watch. Shriekers wrought in shape of slack-jawed skulls, 3-eyed and eager for folly. I spy 4 within bowshot, each quiescent, save when some wandering mote of stone dust lands upon their crown, whereupon they twitch, taste the air, and settle again. One wrong stride, one careless swing, and they shall cry. Thrice they cry, the Redstoners say, and the warden comes. Blind as curse, yet swifter than rage, guided by every breath I draw. I lay a second bridge of wool, skirting censers in an arc wide as prudence, heart keeping pace with drumbeats that echo nowhere but within ribs. Knife edge of prick pries beneath the nearest shrieker. Skulk sinew clings like pitch, cold and greasy. Yet the block yields, sliding into inventory with a sigh. The silence that follows roars louder than thunder, but no phantom bell tolls, no ground shivers. The warden sleeps yet. One by one I harvest the rest, stacking them in pack, not from greed but caution, for a dead shrieker cannot howl. Thus warded, I ease toward the plunder left by ancients whose bones, if any remain, lie deep beneath skulk crust. First chest groans open, hinges rasping, and I freeze, listening. Nothing answers. Within, iron nuggets, fragments of amethyst, and glory of hammer and loom, a pair of leggings wrought of diamond plate, threads rune-etched with swift sneak too. My own trouser of plain leather lie torn by bramble and spider fang. I change without shame, and the new greaves cling like second skin, light as oiled silk. I test them. One crouched pace glides thrice the span, near soundless on fleece. So sped I feel the age return to my limbs and grin. Second chest sits beyond broken pillar. Its lid yields stiffly, revealing a tool none in my clan have wielded. The Skulk Hoe. Shaft of crimson fungus, blade forged of enchanted iron, its enchant script naming Efficiency 3. Such hoe, Herman's ledger swore, cleaves skulk block as reaper scythe hews wheat, and experience orbs shower like sparks from every cut. I heft it, weight odd yet balanced, and slide it at belt, for the blight grows thick upon my destined road. While I rummage, sense pricks the nape, a tremor at edge of vision. Between tiles, where skulk carpets meet cracked stone, the floor bulges, splits. Forth oozes a worm thin as arrow shaft, armored in azure chitin, mandibles churning dust to paste. Behind it trail two more, and soon a score, weaving in and out of fungus threads, each gnawing at cobble and wood alike. Mites, skulk's larvae, said to burrow into beast and man, hollowing heart for hive. They heed me not, yet their very presence drains warmth from my breath. I watch frost plume when I exhale. I retreat, swinging hoe in cautious arc. Edge kisses skulk carpet. Block erupts in bursts of green-gold motes that race to my glove, sinking like embers through hide, leaving warmth and a faint ring of chime within my skull. Another sweep, and another. The mites recoil, their tunnels exposed to torch gleam, but they do not give chase. Perhaps they have not smelt warm flesh enough to hunger. A shiver, knowing that lack is but fleeting. My torch wanes. Time, like pick edge, dulls if overused. I choose a pillar of polished basalt and climb, wool under boot, dulling scrape, till I perch above the plaza. There, from vantage higher than statue pediments, I gaze across ruin. Avenues looping outward, shriekers in small knots upon each corner, ancient redstone lanterns long dark, and everywhere the slow, breathing mould. Somewhere below, deeper still, a heart of grave mind throbs steady and vast. I feel its rhythm through souls as though the whole world were a drum, and I a fly upon its skin. My pack now bears loot to tilt fortune's scales. Swift sneak for silent haste, hoe for harvest of skulk, shards for flasks in nights ahead. Hunger gnaws anew, yet courage swells greater. Knowledge of foe's lair steels the sinew like tempered blade. I backtrack upon fleece path, reclaiming blocks as I go, saving each for bridge yet unmade. No shrieker cries, the warden stirs not. Frost breath ghosts beam as I sigh relief, deep and ragged. I seal the shaft with cobble, for mites must not find upward trail, then lean upon pick and taste the copper tang of fear left in my mouth. Overhead the rock groans, a sound like thunder smothered under blankets of earth. I whisper, rough and low, "Stone hand kept tread soft, so shall heart stay hard." And with that creed I climb once more toward a world still wrestling dusk, bearing in satchel the first true fruits of war against the Horde. A war just now beginning to favor, if only by a hair, those who walk upon 2 dreaming feet. Chapter 5. Trial of Resin and Fire. Sun yet hangs 2 hands shy of noon when the spruce belt thins and I stride upon the open plain. Grass undulates like tarnished bronze. Rye stalks whistle under wind's slow breath, while lark song circles high and blithe as though no rot creeps beneath. Still, the earth's pulse dogs my heel. A furlong ahead, at the brink of a shallow vale, the mould again breaks surface. A hive, half mound, half ulcer, its crown bulbous and weeping. Webs of skulk run outward as roots of choking vine, and each vein throbs to hidden heartbeat. I crouch behind an outcrop of granite, slow my breathing, and take stock. Hunger bar nudges hip and belly alike, yet strength enough remains for one stout deed. Memory returns to Herman's charge. Resin is life-blood of the Horde. Steal it, and thou steal breath from its lungs. So be it. The hive must bleed. First, the shaping of peril. I shoulder down pack, unstop the bucket of lava brought from a fissure by Frostgrin Ridge. Orange glare paints my palm, heat licks my face like forged doors flung wide. With iron shovel I carve a ring about hive's base, a trench 2 blocks deep, 3 wide. Loam streams where flow begins, lava spits, hissing fury as roots shrivel to glassy slag. Resin sacks along hive's skirt bubble and burst, spattering green ichor that sizzles upon molten stone. The sting rises sharp as hoof-singed horn, and I bite the inside of my cheek to keep bile at bay. Fire is a good teacher, yet a harsh one. The old saw rings true. Each blaze here births passage and peril in equal measure. One misstep and stone hand becomes ash hand. With moat complete, I raise wool bridge across the blistering ditch. 3 white blocks only, lest ember leap. Over shoulder I loosen bowstring, nock an arrow, and breathe slow till shaft lies calm. Beneath the hive, shadow stirs. Summoner crooks twist skyward, blue glow licking knotted bark. On their call, lesser horrors will swarm. I loose. Arrow thuds into first post. The glow gutters out. Second summoner wakes, howls like dead reed in a gale. I gift it an iron feather for silence. Third, hidden behind gout of a stream, requires 2 shafts ere it falls. The ground trembles. From tunnels at the hive's flank burst skulk ravens, mites braided into bat shape, wings of mould cloth clapping foul air. They swarm the moat edge, yet lava's glare drives them back. Any that dare sweep low meet arrowhead or burning death. Still more gather clawing for bridge, but swift sneak greaves speed my feet. I dance back 2 paces, shear in hand. The wool bridge lands atop hive's resin seams. I kneel, teeth gritted against noxious fume. Bladder sacks bulge, glimmering pale jade. One swift snip, and fluid spurts. The resin hisses like tallow on iron. splattering boot and sizzling down the hive wall. A second, a third, soon 6 lumps glisten in pack, cold and sticky as pine pitch, yet thrumming weak life. The skulk veins pulse faster now, the hive keening as if a beast run through. But fire is a fickle ally. A tongue of lava swollen from the trench licks the wool bridge. Flame leaps, cloth flares bright, and the heat slaps my face. I lurch aside, landing hard upon resin-slick crust. The bridge collapses, molten rag dropping to moat in bloom of sparks. No way back save a perilous leap, and the summoner roots bud anew where I slew their sires. I notch an arrow, draw it to my ear, and loose. The root shatters. Another sprouts. My arrows dwindle. "Enough!" I growl. My fortune pick shifts at my belt, yet iron blade primed for stone is ill fit for wood flesh. Instead, I reach for my skulk hoe. One sweep, and carpet and root alike tear free, orbs of green gold spirit kissing me in a surge of warmth. 2 sweeps, 3, the hive's song falters to a ragged wheeze. Yet the earth still trembles. From the rear tunnel charges a ravager, hide crusted in scabbed skulk, eyes blind white, maw dripping slurry. It balks at the moat, bellows, then backs for a running start. Lava cannot stop such a weight. I gulp air that tastes of scorched resin and dread, and ready my bow. Shaft strikes skull, but a glance. Second, glance again. The beast roars, clears the moat in a single bound, hooves thundering down the hive ledge. I roll, arrow grazing its flank, then my stone axe comes free. The ravager swings its head, horn catching my pauldron, and flings me over the edge. The heat sears cloth, lava nigh. I clutch the jagged skulk root, boot scrambling upon crumbling lip, and haul myself up in a grunt of pain. The beast turns, lava light dancing on slime teeth. "Fire taught thee, now learn harder," I rasp. Torch from my belt meets resin sack burst moments past. The pitch catches fire and leaps to the main. The ravager shrieks, blindly charging. I feint aside. The creature overshoots, hooves skid upon molten glazed rock, and weight carries it whence it came, into lava moat with a hiss akin to giant sigh. A stench of burnt hide and fungus oils rolls out, thick enough to taste. Silence then, broken only by a crackle of cooling crust and distant whimper of sensors far off. I bind the gash on my shoulder with spider silk, fingers numb where the horn struck. From my pack I draw the recipe book, pages shifting till they rest upon a diagram titled Infection Purifier. Resin, amethyst shard, iron block, plus redstone heart. All lies ready save the iron, and that I brought from the mine. Under burnt sky I forge, resin atop shard, iron to cradle, redstone to core. When the last strip of sinew is tightened, the device awakens. Black iron lantern whose heart shines silver white. It hums low, a note of cleansing rain on parched field. I bear it to the hive peak, set it firm upon the skulk carpet. Light floods outward in breath's low pulses. Wherever it falls, mold withers to lifeless grey, then crumbles into dirt. Veins recoil like singed worm. The hive keens, fissures, and collapses in a dull sigh. The resin well spent. The land drinks first draught of freedom since the woe began. I step back, heedful of the smouldering moat, and watch the grass creep where blight held sway but a heartbeat earlier. The purifier's song weaves with crackling embers, and the sky above brightens as though cloud curtains part its weary praise. Pain throbs in my shoulder, hunger claws my gut, yet hope, small ember, burns. One hive felled, one lantern kindled. The skulk may learn, may grow, but now I too wield growth of fire and of light. I wipe soot from my brow, lift the empty bucket, and smile grim. Fire is a good teacher, yet a harsh one, I tell the cooling moat. May its lesson carry north, for I ride there next. Wind sweeps plain, bearing scent of charred pitch and clean loam newly freed. I shoulder my pack, resin residue tacky on my glove, and stride east where the dusk already kindles embers along the cloud edge and shadow of the horde creeps ever on. Behind, the purifier pulses, steady beacon for a broken world, a grim promise that Stonehand hath turned hunter, and blight shall learn the cost of overreaching claw. Chapter 6. Heart Beneath the Lake. The tiger greets me with silence brittle as pond ice, each spruce bowing under its own weight while moonlight threads through needle eaves. I break camp before first wolf howl, hunger bar half lit, and pace north along a gully scrawled by melt run. Where the valley widens, water lies still as polished slate, a tarn neither broad nor deep, yet ringed by skulk veins that pulse faint sapphire under dawn's grey hush. A grave mind stirs here, heart judders in my breast in answering rhythm. Far bank bears proof, senses squat among reeds, mouths agape, tasting morning frost. Nearer still rise two summoners, their twisted limbs drumming skulk spores into the air. I notch an arrow, whisper, Stonehand bids you hush. Loose once, twice, roots shatter with a dull crack. But the earth's pulse only quickens, the blue motes surge beneath the water's skin, knitting toward a single glow dead center of the lakebed. Herman's ledger spoke of such a thing. A grave mind node, brain stone of the horde, weak to blast yet swift of rebirth. I set my jaw. TNT it must be, else no gain. No respite. Along the ridge I pitch quick forge. Sand, scraped yesterday from riverbank, mingles with gunpowder wrung from creepers felled at dusk. 5 blocks I craft, stacking them neat as loaves beside flint and steel. Each cube thrums its own promise of fire and ruin. One splash of stew keeps hunger from nipping my heel, and I shoulder tools for the dive. But first, exit. With spruce planks and stick I shape an oak boat, keel true, bow high. I drag it to shore, nose kissing the ripples. Water breathes cold against glove, and sulphur fume from fresh TNT tinges breeze with acrid itch. Fire and water, oldest foes, I mutter. Let them wage war for me. I wade thigh deep, then belly deep. Breath catches as chill bites ribs. Frost breath ghosts the surface, drifting beneath spruce reflections. With swift sneak greaves weighted by a pouch, I sink. Torch clenched between teeth till its flame gutters at flood's touch. Darkness swallows all, save the eerie azure glow beating below. I follow. Lakebed clay squelches under boot. Here, mould forms a dome. Skulk sinew wrapped round obsidian core veined white, each throb sending spores across silt like dandelion seeds on air. I plant the first TNT block, nestling it in hollow of vein. 4 brethren ring it at compass points. Redstone dust trails link fuses, glittering faint rows in the gloom. I count heartbeats, mine and the grave mine's, then strike flint on steel. Sparks light brief, hissing out, yet fuse flares ember red. I kick free, limbs slow in the frigid clutch and ankle upward. A boom rolls through the water like a distant thunder trapped in cavern. Slit erupts in a geyser, tossing me as leaf in gale. Pressure beats ears, light flares white, then all dims. I break surface, sputtering, drag onto boat, cloak sodden led across shoulders. Wave slap hull, sulphur stink curls in my throat. A forge left to drown. When the smoke clears, the lakebed gapes in catered moor. Node gone, only shards of obsidian and writhing veins severed mid-pulse. Sensors along the shore fall mute, their eyes dimming. Summoner husks wither to ash. I allow one breath of grim mirth, steering the boat ashore. So ends thy whispering, I rasp, voice raw from the cold. Yet triumph tastes brief, even as I haul bucket to bale seeping water from the hull, the pulse returns, faint yet certain. From crater's rim sprouts new sinew, coiling round glossy bud no larger than a chick's heart. It swells as if seasons hasten within seconds, veins knit, core darkens, blue glow strengthens. Node rebirth. Timer, heedless of man's sweat, proves redstoner law true. I broke its brain stone, yet the rot knits again. I snarl, spitting brine. 1 stack of TNT left, not enough to wage an endless siege. The sun climbs, casting a blade of gold across the tiger peaks, and with light comes skulk might skittering shoreward, noses testing the air for fear scent. I notched a shaft, but stayed my hand. No victory here worth more powder. Better mark the timer. Learn its beat and strike elsewhere while the wound still smarteth. Before I retreat, I set a torchline round the lake, each flame a watchful eye. A purifier would buy respite, yet resin stores run thin. I hoard them for villagers still breathing. Instead, I lay a birch sign. Here lies heart, reborn in night. Beware. Gallows jest to myself, for who else shall read? The iced cross edges of my cloak ring like armor, clinking when I move. I yank the boat onto the bank, flip it to drain. While the water glugs, I kneel, palm to earth, now half reclaimed by grass, half veined blue. Where the node died, soil streams faint, rich with sulphur reek, and I wonder if the land bleeds hope when the blight is slain, if only for a breath. But the breath is fleeting, and the horde unrelenting. I shoulder my pack, checking the TNT count. 1 lone cube keeps counsel with the flint and steel, and I strike southeast toward the rumor of Meadow Village set on granite rise. Perhaps apples of gold yet hang in their storehouse. Perhaps amethyst shards hide within geodes beneath the fields. And when the timer twines full circle, I shall return with heavier hand and lanterns of purity enough to keep the wound from sealing. Behind me the water stills, the new node throbbing beneath the mirror surface like brand beneath the skin. Lark song dares nibble the morning hush, but shrinks when that pulse rises. I leave the lake to its silence and the deep thought of tides, mind echoing drumbeat even as feet pound frost-hard loam. Boots squelch where puddles linger, sulphur tang trails on breeze, mingling with pine sap and iron sweat. A fire buys moments, never peace, yet moments forge chance, and chance may yet cleave doom from dawn. With that hard hope I press on, cloak stiff with ice, heart steadfast as stone gone to steel beneath the weight of winter sky. Chapter 7. The Grey Push Across the River. The tiger thinned into a wide flood meadow where a slow slate-colored river split field from forest like a clean sword cut. Low clouds hung above the water and dulled its surface, as if the sky itself were ashamed to show a proper dawn. On the near bank, the first skulk tendrils already gripped reeds and willow roots, but beyond the current the land remained mostly green, an island of hope hemmed in by a darkening tide. I swore that the mold should gain no further inch. 5 infection purifiers throbbed inside my pack. Their lantern hearts beat with a pale, silvery pulse. Each beat both a promise and a burden. A single beacon shielded no more than a bowshot. If I wished to drive the blight from the crossing, I must plant them, leapfrog fashion, one light guarding the raising of the next. I felled a stand of spruce, stripped the bark, and stacked the beams to dry while the axe rang a steady rhythm that steadied my own breath. The tang of resin mingled with the iron taste of sweat that trickled across my cracked lips. First I laid 3 logs on the near bank, for the skulk beneath was eager to burn any soul that touched it. The platform done, I set the first purifier upon the logs. A low chime sounded, and its glow washed over the mud. Soil drew a long breath, and the heads of cattails unfurled as they sensed an early dawn. I stepped into my small oak boat, shoved away, and felt the current tug like a patient hand. When I reached midstream, the lantern's light had faded behind me. I lowered the second purifier over the gunwale. Its chain rattled once against river stone, and a pale circle spread through the murk like the moon's reflection. Startled minnows flashed silver and slipped back into shadow. The far shore rose under my brow. I ran the keel into tufted grass, cut a notch in the earth, and planted the third beacon. Its radiance touched the edge of the first glow, yet left a cart path of darkness between itself and the lamp that hung beneath the river. I had no time to mend the gap. The horde already felt the wound. Sensors popped from the mud with a hiss like wet coal, and the skulk bee blundered from a bramble thicket. Sensors popped from the mud with a hiss like wet coal, and a skulk bee blundered from a bramble thicket, its wing beat deep as a drum. Poison dripped from the barb beneath its tail. I raised my spruce and iron shield, edge dented but still solid, and took the sting on the grain. Spores crackled against the wood. I pivoted and loosed an arrow. The shaft whined past my ear and struck true. The insect tumbled into the grass where lantern light burned the mold from its shell and left only a twitching husk. A heavier roar followed, the roar of a ravager. The beast plunged from the tree line, its hooves tearing wet loam into tatters. Swirls of skulk foamed around its flanks. I scrambled up an unfinished watchtower, 4 spruce posts cross-braced with slabs. Each rung groaned but held. From the platform I called, "Stand, tower hewn oak! Hold back the night!" It was half prayer, half challenge, yet it heartened my arm. Arrow after arrow whispered away. Shafts sprouted in the creature's shaggy crest, yet it thundered on until the beacon's light seared its hide. Sun-bright purity blazed over the mold, and the ravager faltered, bawled, and finally collapsed, its flesh smoking where the silver glow bit deepest. The victory cost me time. Sensors scuttled into the unlit gap over the river and began to weave their humming net. Vindicator husks lurched behind them, milk-blind eyes fixed on my heartbeat. They waded into the shallows where the middle lantern strove to burn the mold away, but black veils already stretched across its chain, trying to drown the light. 2 arrows felled the first pair of husks, their bodies drifting downstream like rotten logs, but more pressed forward. I slid down the ladder, iron axe in hand, and met the leading marauder where clay met water. Its swing whistled, my shield splintered, yet the blow found no flesh. My answer split collar from rib, and the husks sagged into a cloud of spores that hissed when the river's silver circle touched them. I crippled the next with a boot to the knee. It toppled into the shallows where the lantern's grace did the cleaner work. My breath rasped, my gambeson clung, and sweat stung every shallow cut the broken shield had left upon my arm. When the fight ebbed, I knelt beside the middle beacon. Its casing was scarred where skulk claws had scored the metal. I freed the lantern, set it on drier ground near the third beacon, and closed the breach. Sensors withered like slugs tossed upon a hearthstone, but the shell now bore a loose ring. If it failed, the whole line would fail. I hauled an anvil from my pack, 1 iron block carried since the mine shaft. On a spruce slab I built a quick furnace, melted down broken axe heads, and poured fresh iron. Hammer strokes rang once, twice, shaking my arms to the shoulder. The repair cost 8 hard-earned levels, almost every scrap the Ravager and the Mites had granted, but the lantern fled bright once more. Logs left from the first tower became the frame of a second, raised on a ridge where meadow met pine. On its high platform I planted the 4th beacon. The frontier had already shifted. Further north, fresh skulk veins crawled, but for 50 paces around our chain the grass showed green. The brook babbled clear, and clean honeybees settled on clover untouched by mold. The 5th lantern had to seal a bend of the river, but my powder keg was almost empty. The crow calls drifted from the dark limbs above. I laid a spruce stair bridge over the last gap, muffled its steps with wool, and ran with the final beacon cradled like a child. 2 skulk bees dived. Their droning rose to a hornet's roar. My shield almost cracked, but held together with a single rivet, rose again. The first stinger skipped off iron, leaving a smear that hissed on the wet wood. I set the beacon, and a burst of silver drove both insects into the gathering night. 5 lanterns now burned in a line like fallen stars. Each guarded its brother. Each waged a quiet war against the dusk. I sat on the tower stair, chest heaving, and watched the nearest skulk veins gray, stiffen, and crumble into dust that the current carried away. Farther out, indigo threads still glimmered, but they beat more slowly, as if they were beginning to doubt their own purpose. I laid my battered shield upon the anvil again. Another repair would cost 9 levels I did not possess. It would have to hold a little longer. I ate a crust of bread and a strip of dried beef that tasted of ash and iron, yet it filled the gnawing bar within. The moon climbed past ragged cloud. Her silver eye shone upon the newly freed river, and the water mirrored the 5 pale lights in perfect row. Though the night still crowded the forest edge, a stubborn hope warmed my marrow. Tomorrow I would raise more towers, plant more beacons, and teach even the ravagers to fear the light. For this 1 hour at least, the oak-hewn towers stood. The river ran clear, and the long night held its breath. I leaned against a spruce post, felt the echo of arrow strings in my blood, tasted the salt of honest sweat upon my lips, and gave quiet thanks that the line had not broken. Chapter 8. Black Rain, Bitter Night. By mid-afternoon, the spruce crows began to shiver with storm sign. Far to the west, thunder mutters, low like a smith grinding a blade, and a wall of bruised cloud shallows what pale sun has lingered above my beacon line. I stand on the 3rd spruce tower, a steady lantern glow thumping under my boots, and taste iron on the wind, an omen as plain as Eddie Raven's croak. The purifiers breathe silver, but they breathe best in calm air. A hard rain will dull that light and drown the fire that clings to my sword. I draw the blade, watch a few red motes curl along its edge and murmur, "Fire, stay with me a little longer." The first drops fall, big, cold, and spiteful, drumming on the planks. A heartbeat later, the sky rips open and black rain slants across the river, driven by a wind that smells of wet ash. The lantern hallows fade from white-hot to pewter, their song reduced to a thin whisper. The sky has stolen our torches. I cannot stoke the lanterns in a storm. I can only hold the line. The horde knows weather as a wolf knows moonrise. Censers bloom in the mire beyond the far bank. Their shrieks are swallowed by thunder, yet I feel each cry in my bones. The rain slicks the skulk carpet and turns it into a shining skin. Now the mobs move easily, guided by sound alone. Vindicator husks lumber out of the spruce shadow with axes high. Every thunderclap hides their footfalls until they crash against the tower's legs. I loose arrow after arrow, but the feathers are soaked and the shafts fly short. One husk smashes half the ladder with a single swing and starts its climb. I drop my axe on its helm. Bone splits. Spores hiss and the stench of rot rises until the wind carries it off. There is no time to breathe. From the ragged clouds, skulk bees dive, drones growl restless where the warmth has fled. Their heavy wings buffet the gale, their buzz a deep bass under the hiss of rain. I raise my shield, oak faced with iron and already crazed with cracks from yesterday's fight. The first stinger clangs off the rim. The second splits the strap and flings the board into the mud below. My arm goes numb. A third jab glances off my breastplate, emerald sparks skittering across diamond. I chop the nearest bee from the sky, but 4 more circle like gulls in a storm. A third jab glances off my breastplate, sparks glittering off metal. I chop the nearest bee from the sky, but 4 more circle like gulls in a storm. A fork of lightning tears the dark. For a heartbeat, the world lies stark. The river churned white, the towers drowned in rain, the lantern cores as faint as winter stars. And beyond them, a ravager charging across the meadow. Its bellow reaches me in tatters, yet the purpose is clear. It means to break the first tower where the lantern burns weakest. If that post falls, the chain breaks and the purge is undone. My pulse keeps time with the thunder. For one fearful heartbeat, my resolve buckles. The lanterns look like ghosts. Skulk veins already crawl across the river, and the ravager's charge makes the spruce tower tremble as if the earth itself urges me to flee. I see, in that flash, a path southward. Horse reins in hand, beacons left to drown beneath the black water. The thought tastes bitter and shame sweet. Then memory strikes like a hammer on cold iron. Hedda's flower-dusted smile, the elder's frail hand on my axe, and the sapling that waits for dawn light in a village that still carries my name. Their faces rise between me and the dark, and shame burns hotter than any forge. Stone hand! I rasp into the storm. Fear is a poor guide. I climb what remains of the ladder, boots sliding on the soaked rungs, and sprint across a spruce-slabbed bridge toward the first beacon. Rain needles through my mail and runs like ice down my spine. A bee darts at me. Its wings graze my helm and shatter on a log behind. I loose a blind arrow. The body drops, trailing venom like a dark rainbow. The tower shudders as the ravager rams the braces. Nails groan. The lantern wobbles on its perch. The silver halo is all but drowned. I leap from the ladder top, land on the creature's back, and drive my sword down between the mold-clotted plates of its hide. Iron and will sink together. The beast roars and flings me into the mire. A hoof stamps where my skull had been, spraying icy mud across my cheek. I roll, hack a back tendon, and thrust the axe haft through its jaw. Thunder swallows the last bellow. Floodwater laps the carcass. The lantern brightens where no foe now prowls. Pain throbs in my shoulder, and in my mind's eye the armor bar glows scarlet. Diamond plates are thin, and one more blow from breaking. My hunger bar flickers low. Sweat mingles with rain, and blood tastes like copper on my tongue. Still, the storm beats down. The lanterns fight to breathe, but the drizzle leaches their warmth, and Skulk once more creeps over river stones. I fill an old lava bucket with clean water and sluice the mud from the beacon's housing. The light flares a shade stronger. It is a small, half-futile task, yet busy hands keep despair from taking root. On the second tower, an anvil squats beneath a sodden tarp. My back howls as I drag it under cover. Armor must mend, or I shall meet the night in rags. A single diamond shard, hoarded since the ancient city, fits the breastplate's wound. One hammer blow rings like a cracked bell. 6 hard-won levels bleed away, but the blade turns from red to sullen grey. My shield lies in pieces below. There is no iron left to raise another tonight. The wind shifts and the rain settles into a steady pour. A torch under the awning flickers back to life, its yellow tongue no larger than a candle, yet even that small light stirs the heart. Night gathers in full, clouds swallowing the moon. Shriekers still wail, though less often. Mites retreat into flooded burrows. The bees cling to leaves, wings too heavy to fly. I lean against a brace, mail cold against the skin, boots heavy with mud, and let the rain drum on my helm like a smith's hammer, tempering not iron but soul. Even the sky weeps for this broken earth, I mutter, voice rough as gravel, yet the tears wash mould from the grass, the lanterns still glow, and each ragged breath still smokes in the chill. I resheath the sword, ease my neck, and watch the distant glimmer of Skulk across the river. When a grey dawn hauls itself over the pines, the storm will pass. The beacons will blaze bright again, and stone hand will bend new iron to a fresh shield. The night has taken much, but not my fire, and not my oath. The rain softens, the thunder trails east, and I close my eyes for one brief moment. In the dark, I hear the lanterns hum a low lullaby, while the swollen river murmurs beneath the bridge. My armor cools, the pain dulls, and although the world lies in tatters, I do not dream of peace, but of the hammering, the tower-hewn oak, and a stubborn light that will outlast the black tide. That hope is enough to carry me through the bitter night to whatever dawn may come. Chapter 9. Forge of the Green Soul. Dawn pries apart the tatters of the storm and lays a pale bar of light across the meadow where my spruce tower stands guard. Their lanterns burn bright again, ember hot after the night's deluge, yet sorrow lingers in the churned mud at their feet. A splintered shield, a dented helm, and the waxen husks of the bees I struck down in darkness. I gather every iron shard that can still be smelted and turn my steps eastward, for a great labor calls, the making of a soul purifier, the last hope against the Horde's long shadow. Half a league from the river, a pine belt gives way to a granite shelf that bears the scars of an old quarry. Here I raise my camp. A blast furnace, cobbled from smooth basalt and lined with stone slab, gulps coal like a starving hound. Soon the forge glows orange, hot as desert noon. I upend my pouch, and nuggets of gold ring against the crucible. I follow them with dust-fine shards of amethyst, won in silence beneath the deep dark. Metal blooms like sunrise, violet sparks dancing over molten yellow, and a sharp, sweet scent, part quartz, part soot, fills my lungs and stings my eyes. Outside the furnace mouth I set iron bands and redstone circuit wheels, as Hermon's ledger prescribes. Yet one element still lacks. A heart that no smith may fashion, only corrupt. A block of crying obsidian that must be lured to the Skulk's own song before it can be turned against its maker. I shoulder my pick and trek northwest, where vein after vein of mold still claws the spruce slopes. There I lodge a block of weeping obsidian, prized earlier from a ruined portal, at the very lip of the blight. Blue threads lick the purple face, drinking the stone's endless tears, and a faint pulse begins to beat inside it. Thus infected, it becomes what Hermon named a soul husk, perilous to bear, yet priceless beyond count. I wrap it in wool, feel its slow heartbeat echo mine, and hurry back to the forge. The heat still roars, the gold has cooled in its mold, and the amethyst is ground to a soft-voiced dust. I press the soul husk between them and bind the whole with iron rings. Silver-green light snaps forth, cooler than a lantern's glow, greener than the first bud of spring. The workshop falls silent, as though the world itself draws breath. In that hush, the new-born soul purifier steadies, neither flickering like a torch nor raging like a blaze, but shining with calm resolve as though it knows its task. I cradle it, the cool warmth steady against my palm, and whisper, "This spark of purity I pledge." A spoken word becomes an iron vow. Purity alone is slow. I need speed. On a rise between two wind-shorn birches grazes a stallion dark as kiln smoke, his mane whipped silver by the morning breeze. I unbuckle my breastplate, lighten my tread, and approach with a hush on my tongue. His first snort warns me off, but the scent of oats, borrowed from the tower stores, wins his trust. Twice I mount, and twice I am flung, the breath knocked from my chest. The third time I cling fast, knees locked while he bucks and wheel kicks at the sky. At last, strength meets strength, and a cloud of crimson hearts burst around us, an old sign that kinship is sealed. I laugh, hoarse but certain, and clap his sweat-slick neck. Steam rises where my gambeson, lingering forge heat, meets the morning chill, giving him the look of a fiery white. I name him Grimmane, for grey strands salt his forelock like frost on an iron helm. With the saddle scavenged from a dead husk and my breastplate buckled once more, we thunder southeast. The towers dwindle behind us. The river glints in retreat, and the rolling heath spreads ahead, those same berry thickets where red juice once stained my fingers. Many bushes are withered now, drained by mould, yet Grimmane's stride eats the ground before the rot can even whisper our names. His hoofbeats drum steadier than my own heart, and each plume of breath hangs white in the clean air, horsehide steaming wherever sunlight lances through the torn clouds. Forge fire still seems to ride with us. By noon the wind turns drier, laced with the smell of charred peat and distant ash. The mark of the spawned citadel, the first cradle of the horde, brooding on a basalt rise far ahead. I spy its outline. Fractured towers crusted in skulk that glows even by day, as though the ruin exhales night. Between the ridge and that fell keep lies open moor dotted with rain pools that gleam like lead. Sensors gather at every puddle, listening. Summoners stand along the rises, their blue cores blinking mischief. I will not skulk past them. I ride to plant purity in the horde's own shadow, to drive a clean light through its veil. We halt at the foot of a low hill. I slide from the saddle and offer Grimmane an apple chunk to steady him. Then I set to my craft, shaping cobble for cover, bundling arrows, and mending a bowstring worn thin by the storm. Shield I still lack, so I cut spruce planks into broad pauldrons, binding one to my forearm as a makeshift guard. When my hunger, sharpened by foraging, is eased by the last strip of smoked beef, I lift the soul purifier. Its green glow plays over the stallion's dark eye. He sidles, yet does not shy, courage answering courage. Above the citadel the clouds wheel around a hidden spire, but the sun still slips between their tatters and flashes off my scarred diamond plate. I place my hand on the smithing bench once more, the empty shell of crying obsidian lying ash-grey beside the tools, and speak my vow so the wind may carry it to those cursed battlements. This spark of purity I pledge, by gold, by crystal, by soul, and by steel, let rot be stayed. I swing into the saddle, touch my heels to Grimmane's flank, and we surge toward the place where night was born. Hoofbeats scatter the nearest senses before they can cry, bowstring hums, arrowheads whistle, and the skulk hisses like wet coal on flame. Yet the lantern at my belt answers with a steady song, and though doom towers ahead, my heart, steady as forged stone, knows the path. We ride into the black halls where the Gravemind dreams, bearing a green soul to awaken the world. Chapter 10. Citadel of the First Scream. Grimmane's iron-shod hooves ring upon the broad basalt apron that circles the spawn citadel, but the echo dies at once. The fortress drinks every sound. Its towers lean inward like blackened fingers that clutch a secret. Each buttress is glazed with skulk that glimmers faintly beneath a cold noon, and the arrow slits between the merlons gape like open graves. Here the Horde first shook off the night and named the earth its feast. Here I mean to tear that name from its tongue. Beyond the gate lies a bare court stripped of grass, strewn only with broken banners that lie half sunk in fungus grout. I ride a full circle, marking the points where lanterns will hold. 5 purifiers throb in my saddlebag, 4 common lights, and the single soul heart, each pulse answered by a tremor in the mould below. Even rot can feel dread. Good. I dismount, set the first beacon at the northern arc, then ride sunwise. Lantern light spills in overlapping petals, washing the stone back to honest grey. Sensors on the battlements scream at the touch, but their cry is torn away by the hush that follows. East, south, west, the compass closes. I stop before the gate once more, the soul purifier cradled in both hands. Its glow is green, softer than the rest, like a spring leaf caught among frost, yet it hums with hidden power. I set it on the threshold and feel the halos knit together. 5 lights forge a silent cordon, hemming the citadel in a sullen quarantine. Should the Horde charge outward, it will feel the pain at every step, and I, inside the ring, win a few precious moments before the sun drops. The gate bars are half-rotted, so my axe makes short work. Torch in hand, I cross the arch and find a stair winding round a throat of darkness. Rain from last night still beats on my helm and creeps down my spine. I loose a bucket of water into the shaft, watch the veil fall straight through the void, and dive after it. The column bears me swiftly downward. A musty gust rises to meet me, bitter with spores, like flour gone sour in a damp cellar. My heart beats hard in my ears, and under that drum sounds another, deep, slow, rattling my ribs. The Gravemind pulses in the stone itself, 2 hearts at war. I splash down on a floor 3 stories below. A broad hall opens about me. Pillars of polished black stone, a roof webbed in chains, and rows of cages wrought from greened copper. Each cage nurses a creeper pod, half wrapped in skulk. Red eyes flick open as the torchlight strikes them, and the first hiss begins. My bow is strung and waxed in spite of last night's rain. Shaft after shaft snaps through the hush. Pods burst, creepers pitch to the flagstones, and the purifier halos far above mute each blast so only the mould is seared. From the wreck tumble iron bars and flint. 2 chests crouched in the spine of the wall. Spore dust dims my torchlight as I force them wide. The first spills gunpowder, dry, though the chamber drips with dank, and the second yields TNT blocks, raw sulphur, and a bundle of redstone repeaters. Hermond would have laughed aloud. The noise rouses the garrison. Vindicator husks shamble from the side passages. 5, perhaps 6, axes crusted with fungus runes that glisten wet. They lurch with sudden speed. One arrow buries itself in the lead skull. The husk pitches forward. I back away, armor clinking, boots sucking at the flooded floor. A second swing glances from my makeshift pauldron, oak and spruce bound by hide. The blow rings my plates red and sets pain throbbing down my arm, but flesh is spared. I vault onto the frame of a shattered cage. From the height, my arrows whisper death through the gloom. 3 husks fall, spore clouds billowing. A fourth claws at the bars. I crack its grip with my axe haft and watch it slump into a pool where the mold smothers its strength. The last tries to flee, but the halo at the gate burns its path. The creature crumbles to ash. The halls fall silent, yet the grave mind's tremor swells. A nerve pricked by my theft. Grains of grit dance across the stone. Far overhead a shrieker wails. Once, twice, then a third time. The warden may wake. Stone hand, I mutter. Fear is a poor guide, and I choose the deeper way before rage can climb the stairs. I flood the next flight, sliding down the water to hush my steps. A natural elevator, water buoys me upwards to an alcove lined with iron-bound chests. The pulse is louder here. Spores drift thick as smoke. I read quickly. Ingots, emeralds, more powder. Visions of a grand fire blossom behind my eyes. The hush shatters. Senses above taste the ripple. The roof groans. Creeper pods shear from their chains, dropping like rotten fruit. I sprint, bow thrumming. One creeper lands beside my powder sack, spark in its eye. I dive and hurl a torch. The blast hammers the passage, the waterlogged walls swallowing most of the roar. Ears ring, nose fills with a rank of sulphur, but the sack holds and the way ahead is clear. Lantern light up at the gate is fading. Time bleeds away. My shoulders ache from the weight of the gunpowder. I retrace my route, water vaulting up the shaft until boots meet stair and my 2 hearts drum in time. The silver ring of purifiers still flares against the dark, though the mold claws at their edges like moth at a lamp. The soul purifier glows steady at my side, its power unspent. The next descent must shatter the brain stone itself. No theft, no luring, only ruin. For that I shall braid power and flame into a song that will shake the mountain's roots. Outside the wall, Grimmane snorts, steam curling from his nose in the chill. I lash the thundersack behind his saddle, check the bow, and swing up. One backward glance catches spores drifting like dark snow in the pale halo light. I breathe a wordless oath. The road ahead winds deep. The shadow is hungrier each league, yet my bow is keen, my powder ample, and the light upon my belt burns clear. I turn Grimmane toward the shattered highway. Behind us the shrieker's echo fades, but the heartbeat lingers in my bones. Fear is an unfaithful guide. I ride with firmer companions, light, iron, and a stubborn resolve. Let the first scream remember the tread of Stonehand. or I shall return to silence it forever. Chapter 11. Breaking of the Brainstone. I crept down the citadel's marrow stair, one quiet step folded into the next until my breath steamed inside the helm and my sight failed. Above me, the ring of purifiers still kept the threshold, but here, deep in the bedrock vault, their glow was no more than a rumor. Only the grave mine's own pulse washed the dark, a slow, steady drum that seemed to lash my heart to its rhythm. I dared not strike a torch. One spark would rouse the shriekers and loosen the warden from his chains. Instead, I felt my way by touch, a gauntlet on the basalt ribs, and let the faint frosty shimmer of the skulk guide my boots. The swift sneak greaves slid without a scrape, wool soles smothering every grain of grit. Under my breath, I repeat the old counsel: Stone hand, fear is a poor guide. At last the stair opened into a bowl-shaped hall hacked from raw deepslate, its sides ribbed, its roof lost to soot. In the center throbbed the ancient node, the Horde's brainstone, a sphere of living mold bound to obsidian, wound tight as a clenched fist and veined with void blue fire. Sensors ringed it like dim watcher's fires, lulled for the moment by the hush. One of them gave a faint nod, tasting the tremor of my pulse, yet none cried out. 6 blocks of TNT hung in my pack, each heavier than dread itself. I eased the first charge beneath the arch of a fallen rib and tucked the red stone fuse below the fungus mat. The second block found a nook beside a twitching vein. The third I lodged against the southern flank, where a thin crease betrayed weakness. The fourth and fifth I braced to north and east to bind the chain. The last block I set high, like snow capping a bleak peak. A spiderweb of red dust linked the fuses. One spark would walk those lines and call fire to the feast. The work finished, I drew a breath that tasted of damp chalk and long sorrow. From a hidden pouch I took the one enchanted golden apple I had carried since the deep dark, the treasure I had stolen while the warden's breath grazed my neck. In the bluish light, the apple winked green. I bit deep. Sweet juice flooded my tongue, warmed my forge heat and fresh as spring water. Sweet juice flooded my tongue, warmed my forge heat and fresh as spring water. I felt the blessing settle, skin hard, sinews renewed, heart ready. Flint struck steel. A single spark kissed the dust. A ruby thread woke and slid across the stone like a walking serpent. Time narrowed to a needle's eye. I thumbed my last ender pearl smooth as river glass and whispered to the cobbles, "If doom must find me, let it find me facing it." I hurled the pearl at a faint crack of light on the western ledge as the green vortex opened, and I leaped. Behind me the world split. Crack-boom! The blast blossomed, fury caught in the stone's throat. The vault boomed hollow. The shockwave beat against my spine, but the pearl whisked me sideways through the eldritch seam. I spat dust, tumbled onto the ledge, and felt the hot, metal, bitter wind of the explosion surge past. Helm rang, vision flashed white, and the stone groaned like a wounded giant. Below, the wide hall filled with drifting ash, skulk dust and embers. Thunder rolled away, fading into the groan of torn rock. The node's glow flickered once, faltered, and died like a candle under water. Silence followed. No pulse, no whisper. My ears rang. I peered through the haze. In the node's place yawned a crater, its floor strewn with obsidian shards. The skulk carpet around the rim was grey, drained like marrow sucked from bone. Then I saw the change. The shattered edge trembled, colours shifting as a hidden wind rippled the stone. An unseen wave spread outward. The grey mould paled to ash. The ash sifted aside. Beneath dark loam stirred soil that had not breathed for many moons. The first blades of grass uncurled, green creeping into them as swiftly as oil across still water, weaving an emerald ring round the wound. Senses toppled into the chalky ruin. No shriek rose to replace them. A scent of fresh earth drifted upward, sweet as a field newly ploughed after rain, and unbidden tears blurred my sight. For the space of one doubled heartbeat, the citadel sighed, as though some ancient grief had at last been spoken, and the hush that followed felt not empty, but expectant, like a field before the lark's first call. Yet a miner trusts proof, not dreams. I picked my way down the scree, boots crunching glassy shards, and probed the crater's heart. No pulse answered the steel. The severed veins only twitched and crumbled. I lifted one flake of obsidian, its face glazed green where purifier light had kissed blast heat, warm yet utterly lifeless. The deed was done. Victory, though, wrote its ledger in wounds. My armor, even under the apple's grace, showed fresh cracks. The blast had scorched my cloak to rags. My quiver stood empty. Above, the ledge I had escaped to now sagged, promising a hard climb. Still, I straightened, raised a dirt-grimmed gauntlet toward the roof, charred by torchlight, and let the grass ring widen at my feet. It rolled outward, yard by yard, until the far-off glow of a purifier met it in bright embrace. For the first time since the well-whispered doom, I stood on ground that would not kill by touch. Leaning on the battered skulk hoe, its iron now pitted yet proud, I let the words long forged in my heart escape in a cracked whisper. It is done. Faces drifted in the smoke. The elder by the haunted well, Hedda with flower on her braids, the nameless children swallowed by spores, their silence cooled my triumph as water tempers steel. The grass still crept, slow and patient, but I watched until the green ring met a far wall where mould still clung. For every brainstone shattered, a dozen lesser nodes endured. One beneath the lake, others deep in mountain roots. The war was not finished, though its first citadel lay broken. A stray spark lit on the ledge. I roused myself and climbed, unwilling to linger lest the mould remember its strength. Lichen already glimmered along the passage, fed by the widening purity. When at last the night sky greeted my helm, the 5 lanterns about the gate burned brighter, heartened by the triumph below. Grimmane whickered and stamped when the green tide touched the stones near his hooves. He nosed my hand and snorted relief. I patted the warm, damp neck and breathed air free of the old sour taint. The soul purifier flickered, its strength spent at the circle's heart. I pocketed the empty shell, a keepsake of the hour the battle turned. The other lights still shone, though their halos were thinning. They would need fresh resin before long. In a blighted land, work never rests. For one moment I let myself be still. I unbuckled the helm and allowed the night breeze, cool, tinged with pine, to comb the sweat from my brow. The clouds parted. The stars glittered, distant and indifferent, yet somehow nearer, as though the new grass had drawn them down. I murmured thanks to forge and flame, and the stubborn oak that stands after lightning's blow, and swore by their witness that every knot of blight would meet the same fate. Grimmane pawed the ground, eager for the road. I swung into the saddle, feeling the ache of bones still whole, and steered toward the river towers where faint lanterns winked beyond the heath. Behind me the citadel brooded in silence, its first scream stilled, its core hollow, and the green soul of the earth crept over the stone like the slow flood of dawn. It is not the end, only the beginning. The fallen still weigh my ledger, yet beside their names I write a thin column of hope, inked in turf and guarded in my heart. And hope, once kindled, can burn a world cleaner than any fire forged by mortal hands. Chapter 12. Green Dawn and Aftersong. The road home unwound beneath Grimmane's easy stride like yarn pulled from an old cloak. Fresh grass lifted on either side, patches of emerald joining into long seams where lantern light had once burned the mold to dust. And above us the sky shone blue and clear, broken only by a single white shred of cloud that drifted as though shy of its own brightness. I rode slowly, armor buckled but helm swinging from the saddle horn, and let the mild wind cool the aches that still throbbed along rib and shoulder. With every furlong, the deep, borrowed heartbeat that had hunted my bones grew fainter, until at last I heard only the plain drum of a mortal man's blood. Beyond Roof Thatch Hill, I drew rein. The little hamlet of my first waking lay below. A half-ring of turf and timber cottages, their thatch patched here and there with new straw. Smoke rose from Hedda's bake-oven once more. Sheep grazed near the green, their fleeces white again instead of that sickly blue. Yet at the very centre, where the well had whispered doom, the earth still gaped in a shallow crater ringed with timid grass. One lonely mote of sulk glimmered there, an ember under grey ash, flaring, dying, flaring again, uncertain whether to yield or fight. I dismounted, running my hand down Grimmane's warm neck. Steam curled from his coat in the cool air, carrying the honest scents of horse and pine. "Rest, old friend," I said, and he bent to nose the dew-damp blades. My own pack creaked as I walked toward the wound, still heavy with broken arrows, empty lantern shells, and dreams not yet mended. Inside the wool wrapping I felt the last treasure, an oak sapling, its acorn clinging to a thin root like a bronze bead. It was a child of the great tree that had shaded our harvest feasts, cut down on the morning the well first screamed. I meant that line to live again. Kneeling at the pit's edge, I loosened the soil. Dark, rich, sweet as new hummus where rot had ruled, and pressed the sapling into place, tamping gently with the heel of my glove. A sharp green smell rose, the hopeful, almost merry. From my canteen I poured the last mouthful of water. The earth drank at once, and a cool drop ran along my thumb, tasting faintly of copper and dawn. Footsteps sounded on the track behind me. I half drew the axe by habit, then stayed my hand. Brynjar, the reeve, stood there, beard trimmed, eyes still wary. 2 villagers close at his back. They stopped a respectful span away and inclined their heads. When they spoke, their voices carried the quiet music of a market square, half whisper, half question. "Was it truly gone, Stonehand?" Brynjar asked, gazing at the pit. I answered with fact, not story. In the corner of my mind I called up the tally the world keeps. Skulk blocks, 0, in this very chunk. I inclined my head, letting him see the certainty in my eyes. A single breath escaped the 3 of them, the sort one gives when winter finally loses its grip. One villager stepped forward to smooth the damp earth about the sapling, or softening her weather-roughened hands. Morning settled. A lark broke the hush, showering clear notes over charred rafters and reed-thick eaves. 3 children, more than I had dared to hope, peered from a doorway half-mended. At the sight of my muddied greaves, they darted away, giggling down the lane. I crossed to the stump of the well, now sealed with oak planks, and unhooked the pick that had served me since that first fearful hour. The iron head was dulled, the haft scarred by fire and frost, yet the runes of fortune still glimmered. I weighed the old tool, remembering the very ring the stone had given my knuckles. Then I knelt and laid it upon the grass beside the sapling. The soft thud felt heavier than any blow struck in anger. "Rest, old friend," I whispered again, this time to iron, not to horse. A breeze shifted, bringing the mingled scents of sap and fresh bread. Hedda must have coaxed flame into her oven, and the faint tang of trout from the downstream nets. Life was creeping back, shy as a doe at first light. Yet my joy could not rise untroubled. Memories of ruined ground farther north settled on my shoulders like a wet cloak. Lesser nodes would revive in the hills, might still burrowed deep, and the warden slept rather than died. I had broken 1 brainstone, but the debt of the fallen weighed heavy, tempering any cheer. Brynjar stepped close and held out a round loaf, still warm. "Stay and feast with us," he said. "We owe you more than words can carry." I shook my head. "You owe me nothing. The fight was ours together." Even so, I tore off a crust and chewed, tasting salt, yeast, and quiet triumph. The strength that seeped back came not from rage, but from peace. Sunlight climbed, catching dew on the sapling leaves until they shone like shards of emerald. That lone skulk mote at the crater's rim flickered again, but weaker now. The newborn oak seemed to press it, asking a choice. I watched, hardly breathing, until the pulse shrank to a spark no brighter than a gnat's eye. It guttered, faded, perhaps slain, perhaps only sleeping. The world offered no promise, only this seed, this breath, this present hour. I stood guard while Brynjar roused the folk to their tasks, thatch to weave, fences to mend, stories to trade. Children raced across the green, chasing imagined dragons. Their laughter rang truer than any bell. I left the axe where it lay, for soil was already creeping over the haft, claiming what the storm had spared. The wind stirred once more. The lark sang a final, bright trill. The sun spilled gold on the roofs of the hill. The long night was not slain, only wounded, but dawn had won a foothold. Drawing my cloak about my shoulders, I felt its weight lightened, and fixed my gaze upon the sapling. I watched the sprout take hold, and the long night feels a step farther off.